The most famous real crimes that took place around the world. Part 2. Let's start the video. 1. Gianni Versace. The public continues to be baffled by the shooting of fashion superstar Gianni Versace in broad daylight in front of his mansion in Miami's South Beach. Versace was a well-known fashion designer and the founder of the Versace fashion house at the time of his death. In the fashion industry, he was a sensation, dressing celebrities such as Princess Diana of Wales. But Versace was behaving strangely on the morning of July 15, 1997. Witnesses claim he went down to a nearby cafe, passed the entrance, and then circled back to enter minutes before his death. Later, a hostess noted that it appeared as if he was being followed. Versace then went out and got a newspaper before returning to his multi-million-dollar Mediterranean villa. But he never made it past the front door. How the murder occurred is unknown. A young man in his 20s approached Versace from behind and shot him twice in the head, according to some witnesses. Others claimed the males appeared to know each other, and they were fighting over a bag when a gunshot rang out. Regardless of how it happened, one of the world's most recognizable fashion designers has passed away. Andrew Cunanan, a 27-year-old male, was the offender in the local gay community. He had a reputation as a flamboyant gold digger who preyed on older guys for free trips and expensive stuff. Many individuals, however, referred to Cunanan as unhinged. Cunanan killed 4 other men throughout the country in the 3 months leading up to the murder of Versace, landing him on the FBI's most wanted list. Cunanan, on the other hand, refused to take responsibility for his actions or identify his purpose for killing Versace. Shortly after Versace's murder, he committed suicide aboard a Miami houseboat, leaving no note and but just a few belongings. Two. Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia. We apologize for not posting real pictures of her due to the horrific scenes in the pictures. Elizabeth Short, often known as the Black Dahlia, was an aspiring actress who desired fame above all. She could never have anticipated how she would earn it, as the victim of a heinous crime that has haunted America for decades. On January 15, 1947, a young mother and her 3-year-old daughter came across the body of Elizabeth Short, who was 22 years old at the time. Her body had been entirely sliced in half and lay brutally disfigured in the grass of a Los Angeles suburban area. Her body was split into 2 pieces roughly a foot apart. Her intestines had been removed, folded, and then reinserted into her stomach. Her wrists had ligature marks. Pieces of her skin had been removed, and her entire body had been drained of blood. Her face, though, was perhaps the worst aspect. The killer had slashed it open from the corners of both sides of her lips to her ears, leaving a Joker-like smile on her face. An editor at the Los Angeles Examiner got a call from someone claiming to be the murderer a week later. He'd kept souvenirs and would be sending them over in the mail, he claimed. He followed through on his promise. A postal worker brought out a letter addressed to the Examiner 4 days later. Elizabeth Short's birth certificate, business cards, pictures, and contact book were all included. But, as with so many previous well-known murders, the accompanying media circus merely served to bewilder the inquiry. The authorities were inundated with tips making it difficult to separate the truth from the lies. They interrogated 12 potential suspects and listened to more than 60 persons who claimed to be the killers, but they were unable to make any arrests. 3. Carl Panzram. Carl Panzram is known as America's most repulsive serial killer. Throughout the 1920s, he admitted that he killed 21 individuals, though not all have been confirmed, and sexually assaulted over 1,000 boys and men. Once Panzram hired 6 men to work on a boat alongside him, shot them, and then fed them to crocodiles. This is one of his most heinous crimes. For all of these things, I am not the least bit sorry. 4. Kitty Genovese. The public was shocked by Kitty Genovese's murder, which took place outside her apartment in front of many of her neighbors. The young woman was brutally murdered while crying for help, and the neighbors who heard her screams did nothing to aid her. The psychologists wondered how could someone observe an attack, or observe a crime taking place and do nothing. The phrase, bystander effect, was coined by psychologists, and it now appears in almost every psychology textbook. On March 13, 1964, Kitty Genovese drove home to her apartment in Kew Gardens around 2:30 a.m. from the bar she worked at in Hollis, Queens. She didn't notice the automobile that followed her all the way home from a nearby parking lot. Genovese parked her car at the train station and began walking 100 feet to her apartment complex. That's when Winston Moseley attacked her. As he stabbed her, Genovese screamed. Her shouts for aid were loud enough to arouse her neighbors at 3:15 a.m. However, none of them rushed to her rescue. One man shouted, "Leave that girl alone." It was enough to scare Moseley away. But even with him gone, nobody helped Genovese back to her feet. For 10 minutes, she crawled across the ground, slowly bleeding out, no one helping her. And then Moseley came back. He stabbed Genovese several times more before raping and robbing her and then fled. Neighbors didn't notify the cops until after 4 a.m. Over an hour after she was assaulted. It was too late by then. Genovese had already passed away. A few witnesses said that they dialed 911 but that their calls were not prioritized. Others simply said that they presumed someone else would have done it instead. The behavior of Genovese's neighbors cost the young woman her life. The Hello Kitty murder. Fan Man-yi, a 23-year-old nightclub waitress, was abducted in 1999 by 3 men. They tormented her for a month before she died, though it's unclear whether the men were to blame for her death or if it was due to a drug overdose. The men decapitated her and stuffed her skull into a huge Hello Kitty doll when she died. The 3 men were all found guilty of manslaughter. The Hello Kitty murder is widely regarded as one of the cruelest and most ruthless cases to ever come before a Hong Kong court.